So, Elton, look, I want to thank you for coming, man. And by the way, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well-deserved nod for the city manager job and role. So, yeah, I mean, you've been in it, what, 5 days, 6 days?
Yeah, something kind of
6
lost
days
track.
in eternity, all rolled into one. So,
Right.
how's it been? What's going on? What are your priorities?
Well, I think starting out, my priorities will be trying to fill some of our key
Sure.
vacancies.
Sure.
Finance director, human resource director.
Right.
My previous role as
Yep.
assistant city manager. We have an IT director that's also, we have someone in interim, but we got to fill it permanent. So
Right.
those are some of the key things that I like to focus on. We have to complete our audit,
Yep.
which we have to take
Yep.
care of.
Yep.
The budget has to be approved,
Yep.
adopted by June 30th. So my plate is full, but I think it's going to take a team effort, and you're going to be a part of that team.
Well,
and I think that we can get there.
But what do we do to help? Obviously, it's what I want to do because you do have a lot of work in front of you, a lot of heavy lifting. Just replacing those folks to get a team to really be able to leverage that to get stuff done is a big deal. And so,
Correct.
Good luck on all that. How are the searches going? You got some leads out there?
I have a few leads right now. I think the 21st. So the 21st of April was like a soft cutoff date.
Right.
And I was going to start reviewing what we have. I know we have several applications in all of the positions. I just have to figure out, are there any good ones?
Right.
It's
Right.
quality versus quantity.
I
And so
understand.
that's going to take some time for me to review. And I'll have some other folks going behind me because I may miss something, making sure that we have the right fit for Rocky Mount. And hopefully we'll be bringing people to interview within the next couple of weeks.
Right. Well, I'm no doubt that's going to happen. So good luck on that process, and
Yeah.
and take your time. A bad fit is worse than just waiting longer to get the right fit. But you already know that. I mean,
You're correct.
I'm preaching to the choir, as my dad would say.
I don't know. I just know it's a team. The success that I've had
Yeah.
throughout the years, it's because of the teams that I've been on.
Sure.
And now that I'm leading the team, sometimes that means taking a back seat, knowing my personal strengths, also the areas that I have to opportunities to improve. So
Right.
I just want to make sure that we have the right fit for Rocky Mount. And some of that may be promoting from within.
Yeah.
It could be bringing someone from the outside. But again, just working with you all,
Right.
working with the mayor, working with the council, finding out what your priorities are, and then finding the pieces to fit in that puzzle that we can all move forward together.
Right. So, look, I had not really heard your story until we had a chance to, I guess, interview you during our retreat. So, spend a little time, back up a little bit. Tell us about your starting point, and because I found the story absolutely interesting. I think it tells a lot about you, your character, perseverance, and so I guess you were the magistrate.
Yes.
And then just kind of walk through that whole process because, well, actually, you started at UPS, so you were in logistics.
I was.
So maybe start there,
Okay.
because I think that just really tells a great story about you.
Okay, so I was a former football player
Yep,
at Furman University.
That's right.
Had a full scholarship. Ended up landing a job working for a nonprofit originally.
that's right.
Yeah.
Forgot that.
Yeah.
Conveniently forgotten that piece, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was a project manager for a land trust.
Uh-huh.
And I had a 6-state coverage area within the southeast of the United States. That job lasted for just over a year, and then they moved their home base to Durham, and I wasn't in a position that I wanted to move to
Right.
a different state. I
Right.
was wanting to stay in Greenville. So then I started working for UPS. Had a stellar career at UPS.
Okay.
I wanted to be a corporate guy.
Yeah.
I was wheeling and dealing, making deals with
Yeah.
international companies, saving them money, working in logistics. I wasn't driving the trucks. I was.
No, you're the back office guy doing the deals. I got to get this box from A to B, and I've got to get 500 tons of it, or
That's
whatever
correct.
it is, and I got to get it from China to Vietnam to all that.
That's
So,
correct. We used to call those calls Wismo calls.
Okay.
Where is my order?
well, yeah.
And I used to have to work on that, but was very successful in that. However, it was very intense, and it's a different type of intensity as opposed to being in politics.
Sure.
This was every morning. What are your numbers?
I do know.
What are your numbers? What's the bottom line?
That's
And
right.
I was like, man,
That's right.
my goodness, can we take a break? We had a calling system where I couldn't even call my clients unless it was a break. As soon as I hung up from one,
Right.
it dialed the next one.
Did it really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It was very intense.
It's like some of those canvassing softwares out there, you can load them up and it's just dialing.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember the movie Margin Call.
I do.
that was my office.
Okay, got it.
And so we were ringing the bell, we were celebrating, and that was fun. But
for a while.
Yeah, for a while, exactly. I wanted to really use my degree. I wanted to do something more than make a profit.
What was your degree?
Political science. Had a bachelor's art in political science because I always had an eye on politics, not necessarily elected, but appointed, which I'm doing now. So I'm really living out my dream. But in order to do that, I kind of studied the field and the age of the folks that were in the position where I wanted to be. I was like, man, if I go back to school, by the time I get out of school, there'll be a lot of retirees, and hopefully I'll land a job. And interesting enough, the city of Rocky Mount had an opening. When I graduated, I didn't get an interview.
No, okay.
I wasn't ready. But
I
I shot my shot. But I ended up getting into a program in which they place you in small towns in North Carolina to be somewhat of a manager / town administrator. And that's kind of how I got my feet wet. So I worked in 3 small towns, Bolton, North Carolina, Northwest North Carolina, and Nevada. And I was their de facto manager for all 3 towns. So, working in Rocky Mountain is going to be a challenge, but an opportunity I think we have. It's not going to be a bad thing, but it's just, we got some room that we have to grow. But imagine working in 3 towns at the same time.
Well, 3 times, and weren't you also the magistrate during that time? So you really had enough time to maybe take a shower, shave, and
that's all I had.
And get on the road again.
That's all I had. So I used to go from my magistrate schedule was, again, this was all during the time of the recession. And so I could not leave the courthouse as a magistrate because they would have lost the position. So my Superior Court judge at the time told me that she was going to move me from day shift to night shift. And so my shift started at 7 p.m. I got off at 7 a.m. And then I was at the office at 8. So there was only an hour.
1 or 3.
Yeah.
No, I cannot imagine what that was like because, look, I mean, just one, even as small as it may seem, there's a lot of complexity that goes into that, right? I mean, how do you get, the services delivered, whether it's trash, police, whether you have your own professional force or you're subcontracting from the county or however you get those, services, but you got to have them.
Yeah, it was kind of drinking out of a fire hose. But it prepared me for where I am now. And so when I look back at it, I was complaining during the time, but it really set me up for the success that I'm having today. I learned a lot. I learned how to communicate with folks. I learned how to meet in the middle. I learned how to make compromises, but also learned how to listen. That was the main thing because when I came out of grad school, I was feeling myself a little bit. I was like, oh yeah, I'm ready to take over the world. And I realized that the world would take over me if I had that approach. So I changed my approach. I listened more. I was an active listener, and I found out how to meet people where they were. And that's really been the recipe for success. And so from that point on, I did that for 2 years. Finally ended up leaving the magistrate office, which was a good opportunity because I learned how to work with law enforcement officers. The public, I say the finer citizens of Brunswick County. That's where I was at. There you go. We were right there at the beach. And then I ended up, I didn't get the job in Rocky Mount back then, but I did apply for another town that was close by, Sharpsburg. Didn't know anything about it. I was just shooting my resume out to places to try to land. Ended up interviewing for their town manager's job. I got that. I ended up buying my first house in Rocky Mount. So I lived over in the North Green community. And that's kind of how I started my career. So I started off with those 3 towns, working as a magistrate, having the private sector. So I knew how to make deals already. I just had to learn how to do it from the public side. And really thankful for all the people, all the mayors, the council members, the citizens that helped me get to where I am. And from that point on, I worked in Sharpsburg for about 3 years, a little over 3 years. I got married during that time. So I had to learn how to make further.
Finally got her to say yes.
I finally got her to say yes. Had to figure out how to make more compromises because my wife is also in local government. So we had to find a place that worked for both of us. So I ended up getting a job in Franklin County as their assistant county manager for operations. So I was managing just about half of the force in Franklin County, doing public works, maintenance, emergency services. I was the liaison for the sheriff's office. I mean, a lot, Parks and Rec, filling in.
I know there's a big difference between county and municipal government too. So,
there is.
Just take a minute or two. What are some of the biggest differences when you're looking at that? Because, we often look at the counties and, there's always a little friction between municipalities, and it doesn't necessarily need to be, but,
Right.
but, there are a lot of differences in terms of the perspective. And so I think that creates some misunderstandings from time.
I would say the biggest difference from my perspective,
Sure.
being that I was in management, is that from the county, you're more of a liaison,
Okay.
as opposed in the city, the structure is more linear.
Right.
Give you a prime example. In the county, you have elected officials. You
Right.
have the sheriff, you have
right.
the register of deeds, you have all these people who are elected that work for.
Mhm.
So, I can't really reprimand
Right.
an elected official.
We try.
I
It
won't.
doesn't work very well, but anyway.
Yeah, right. I won't.
I know, right.
I won't try to reprimand elected
That's
officials
right.
then, and I
That's
won't
right.
do it now.
That's right. I got you.
But if someone who works for management in a city,
Right.
they work for the manager if you're in the council manager form of government.
Mhm.
So, there's corrective action that we can take. So when I was in a county, I had to use some of my deal making skills from my UPS days
Right.
to try to get people to yes.
Yeah.
And so I was more of a collaborator
Right.
manager,
Right,
as in city government is more directive.
Sure.
I mean, you still have to collaborate and you still have to work with folks, but I was assistant in Rocky Mount for 5 years, and in that position, I
Right.
did what the city manager told me to do.
Sure.
I did have a voice,
No, of course.
but at the end of the day, the buck stopped
Right.
with the city manager. In the county manager or assistant county manager, we're more of a liaison,
Right.
because you do have so many positions that are elective and you're more spread out. But
Sure.
with regard to working together, I feel like we can do that. We can do that here in Rocky Mount. And Rocky Mount's in a unique situation
Right.
because most places don't have two counties
I know.
that you're working with.
And how about divided by a railroad track? I mean,
Yeah, no.
Stephen King couldn't have come up with a worse plot to
Correct.
try to make it challenging if he tried. I really don't believe that. But anyway,
And the truth of the matter is, no matter where you're at from a jurisdiction standpoint, the air doesn't get cleaner when you go to one side of the track or the next side of the track. And so from our perspective, we want to just work together.
Right.
And because Rocky Mount is unique, we try to make sure that we are equitable in our decision making.
Hey man, you were in Sharpsburg. You had 3 counties down there.
I did. And the hardest decision going back to my mattress days is when an officer arrested someone,
Right.
they had to decide where they were at so they could know which jail to take them to,
Well,
Wilson, Dash, or Edgecombe County.
I hadn't considered that, but that actually becomes a real problem in
It does.
a place like that.
It does.
So look, tell me, the biggest thing in front of you right now, obviously, is the budget process.
Correct.
And I know that you're underway on that. And so, generally speaking, department heads take a stab at it and start talking to you. Where are we in that process? And, where are you seeing? I know we've got a big gap that we got to cover, and we just need to talk about it. I mean, right now, at least when I looked at it, it was about $9 million. That may be plus or minus something.
Close.
You might be able to tell us a little more refinement, but we got to close that gap, and that's going to be a little bit of a challenge for you.
Yeah, it's going to be tough because we want to make sure that we don't lessen our services. We want
Right.
to still be able to provide the services that our citizens and stakeholders need in the community.
Right.
But at the same time, we have to also think about doing it within certain parameters. So
Right.
there are going to have to be some very difficult decisions that we're going to have to make this year and probably the next couple of years. There's a lot of things that are going on at the federal government that will impact us here
Right.
locally. There's some funding that we normally get that we might not get moving
Right.
forward. So we're just going to have to find a way to do not necessarily more, but do the same with a little bit less.
Right.
And so we're going to have to strategically find out, are there areas that we could trim back from a personnel standpoint,
Right.
from sometimes a service delivery, and also just some of the things that we do that are not necessarily typically things that cities get involved with. There
Right.
may be a private sector company, there may be a nonprofit or some other organization that may be able to do something at the same quality, if not better, at a lower cost.
Right.
So can we have those type of partnerships?
Use a third party component to do whatever.
Exactly. So we're going to, nothing is off the table.
No. Got
We're
it.
going to evaluate everything.
Sure.
But with like the advancements of AI and technology,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to have to look at those things very seriously. But for me, the people matter most.
No, of course.
So whatever we do, the people will be at the forefront of our conversation. So when I present a recommended budget to you, you'll know that it's something that I didn't come to easily.
Well, I know you've been scrubbing it,
Yeah.
And I think it's important to just kind of hit a pause button here and just say, look, a lot of these issues were certainly pre-Elton.
Oh yeah, yes. Let's
I mean,
get that on. Let's get that on the
you might
record.
have had a ringside seat,
Right.
but nonetheless, you weren't necessarily totally responsible for. But it really came because we deviated from the pay and comp study,
Right.
basically, and we've had some other challenges internally that have created some additional expenditures that really weren't disclosed in a way that we need to look at. So, but as a result of that, because I really don't want to spend a whole lot of time trying to throw somebody under the bus, but I think it's important that folks understand who listen to this, and for the record, that we have found ourselves here through, and we've done the right things to try to bring correction to it. But it's always harder to get back to line of scrimmage when you're behind it. It just always is. And so it's going to take a little bit of time. But I think that's important for folks to know and understand. The other thing is, you're talking about, and kudos for thinking, kind of outside the box. Hospital systems, healthcare, it's not unusual for another company to actually run the kitchen or the dietary services
Right.
or housekeeping or the emergency department, and yet they operate as one big, single unit. And so
Correct.
that's some of the stuff you're kind of talking about. And that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah. You're exactly right. One of the things that I've learned throughout my career is that typically the end user doesn't care about the name on the truck.
I don't.
They just want the service. They just want their trash picked up.
That's right.
They want their cable turned on.
That's right.
They want their lights on. And Rocky Mount's unique because we're electricity.
That's right.
They want the lights on. They want the toilets to flush. They want the water to run. They don't really care about the name. Now, internally, we want to provide all the things that we can with our folks.
Right. That's right. That's
but
right. That's
there may
right.
be an opportunity for us to improve,
Sure.
get better,
Sure.
save money by looking at other
Well, sometimes
avenues.
if you have a lot of gaps, sometimes a third party fixes that, resolves that issue for you too. There's lots of reasons why you may go down that road, and I understand you're not telegraphing, and nobody needs to be
Right.
worried today. But
Correct.
but the point is, everything is on the table, and you've got a gap to close. And
right.
congratulations on that.
Yeah, and I think we're going to do well together because my job as manager is to recommend,
Right.
but I want to do it in a transparent way.
That's right.
So when I'm making decisions, it's going to be a team decision. So
Right.
I'm going to make sure that the mayor and council are aware of where we are, because I don't want to get too far off track from your priorities.
Right.
And my goal as manager is to manage and to get us to where you all want us to be.
Right. And to be clear, our job is to represent our constituency, whether
Correct.
it's as a ward representative or the city representative, and bring that to the table. So, ultimately you're answering to the folks in Rocky Mount,
Correct. And we're all in it together. And so we're going to have public input sessions. The budget process is going to be much different in a year from now.
Right.
Today, I'm kind of falling in where we were, and I got to,
Right.
like I said, I got a big gap I got to fill.
Well, it's basically May.
Yes.
It's basically May, and this thing's got to be passed in 60 days.
That's correct.
And enterprise funds, everything all in, it's about $230 million.
Correct.
So with about 1,100 people-ish, in terms of full-time equivalents, maybe less, but that's a lot. That's a lot of moving parts.
That's a lot. And so because of where we are now,
Without a finance director, I might add.
it's true. Luckily, I have a little bit of background in finance and
You
budget.
do,
So
and Ken's been there for a while, so he's
He
provided
has.
some continuity there. But it'd be a lot
Yeah.
easier if you had some other.
it would. And so that's why I say if we have the grace of getting through this year,
Right.
even though it's going to be difficult, but the next year, I really feel like we'll be on a much better track.
Right.
Because hopefully we'll have those key positions filled. We'll have a better idea of what's going on at the federal level.
Sure.
We'll know where our funding is, and we can get back to really making Rocky Mount prosper in a way that we both know that we can.
Yeah, sure.
Because the process that I want to start in the next fiscal year
Mhm.
is having an open, transparent process starting early as like November, December, January.
Right.
So we're starting to have meetings then.
Right.
So hopefully by this time next year,
Right.
we'll be on vacation.
Well,
Budget will be done.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
I'm
one,
going to
Mr.
try.
Ray.
I'm going to try. We'll be done.
That sounds like just like a dream. I don't
Yeah,
know.
but the early bird gets the worm. Is
that's
what,
right.
I grew up on the coast. Is what we say.
I
And
get it.
I feel
get it.
like if you all are involved the council members, mayor, the public, if you're involved early in the process, you'll get better buy-in and we can get closer to yes.
That's right.
In a way that's cost effective, efficient, and something that we all can say we took a part in. And,
Sure.
and that's my goal. And I'm starting that now. I'm not going to wait till next year to start that.
That's right.
Our process is going to look a whole lot different than it did the last couple of managers.
Right.
Not to say that my way is better than the next one, but I just think it's a difference.
Well, it has to fit with your style, right? And the personality and the culture you bring to the table. And you, of course, understand and appreciate the culture that's already here. So you can't really change that overnight, but it has to work. It has to fit a hand in glove. And
That's right.
So anyway, well, good. I am excited that you are moving forward on trying to build that team, because that's something I think that has been handicapping us, quite frankly, for a little while. It's just hard to do. You can't do it all. You just can't do it all.
That's right.
And it's not sustainable. So what other things are out there that we need to be talking about? I mean, I tried to cover the budget, kind of how we ended up where we are. Congratulations on the appointment. I think, Peter got a little celebration when we had the meeting and made the appointment, got you sworn in, and it's good to see all your family there. Yeah. So anyway, we're moving, but you try to get a step ahead of it. So what's in store for us otherwise?
I think we have some opportunities that we can invest a little bit more in.
Sure.
One of those areas is our infrastructure.
Right.
There's some things, I've joined you in a number of ribbon cuttings for fire station.
Right.
We'll be doing one soon for our BTW campus, Booker T. Washington campus. I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
But we really don't celebrate the underground stuff.
That's right.
The
pump
but we
stations. Gotta have it. It's not a sexy way to spend money.
But it's a necessity because that will bring some of the economic things that we need to help us with our gaps in the revenue. So even with the sports complex, I think it's time for us to look at the sports complex on how we can possibly renovate it, reimagine it to generate more income for the city. Right. There's some things. We have a jewel in the event center. I feel like it's doing a great job. But, it was built in 2018, so it needs some enhancements as well, because we want to stay ahead of the market. We want to make sure that we're doing the best that we can to put heads in beds for the tourism. So there's a lot of strategic things that we could do to help us. And, I don't have all the answers, but I think that's kind of where I'm leaning to, is investing in the things to make Rocky Mount quality of place improve. A lot of people talk about quality of life. Well, that's kind of subjective. Your quality of life could be different than my quality of life. Sure. However, people can't argue with quality of place. Either you have a nice park or you don't. Right. Even you have water, sewer, or you don't. Right. There's no gray area.
Could be Flint, Michigan.
You could.
Right. I mean, that's the problem.
You could.
So you were saying earlier that you were concerned about some of the federal funds that may be different this year. You have any indications of what that might look like, or just the generic, what we're all kind of sitting around saying, there's change afoot and we don't really know what it looks like. But have you gotten any indications that?
I don't have definites.
Okay, fine.
But I will say that there will likely be some agenda items coming in the next couple of weeks that we need to address. Okay. Because we do have people that work for us in the federal government, our lobbyists, and they're closer to the fire than we are. Right. And so we take their advice. So
which is why we hire them.
Yes, exactly. So there are some funds that we have had for quite some time for like community development that we had a plan for, but now we got to expedite that plan. We have to implement it. Right.
Or at least some phases of it.
Correct.
Because otherwise the money may just simply go away.
Yeah, and we don't want that to happen.
No. So, it's hard enough to get it.
Yeah, so those are the things that we need to address immediately. The other stuff, we're just kind of, just like the rest of the world, we're kind of playing it by ear. Yeah. But we're going to manage the things that we are aware of and that we have control over, and the things that are out of our control, we'll just adjust. You have to pivot in life.
I wish that weren't true, but it is. It has been the truth of my life anyway.
That's when you're successful, you have to pivot. You have to be able to adapt. Right. And I feel like Rocky Mount has proven to be a great city. We've had some hard times. I think some of the hardest times were during the flood. We're still recovering. Yeah, we are. But we're bouncing back. Yeah, we are. It's taken some time, but I definitely think under the current leadership that we have with the mayor and council and councils of the past and mayors in the past, I think you all have laid the foundation for us to really make a dent and go in the right direction. And I feel like my little bit as a new city manager will help get us there, hopefully a little bit faster.
Well, there you go. We're going to leave on that note. Thank you, Elton, for coming.
Thank you.
Congratulations on that. I look forward to many years of great success under your leadership.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope to be here for a very long time.